Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reactions to the United States Grand Prix. And you know what? Before we head into this, I'm going to say I think I need to stop making predictions because around about a month ago, was it? After the Dutch Grand Prix, I put a video out, very much like this one, having my reactions to the race, and I think I titled that video, "Is This Championship Over?" And since that video went live, it has been non-stop, the championship going more and more on, leading to this weekend where, my goodness, it's been kicked into even another gear by a fantastic display by Max Verstappen, fully pulling himself back into this championship. We'll break it all down and more in just a little bit. Before we do, remember to like and subscribe. And of course, a huge shout out to the members: Dakota the Joyce James, Ron Myers, Simon Strudel, Michael Johnson, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Philip Deganzik, No Eno on Sandwiches, Sarah Jowett, and Andy Jones. Give us a hype! Of course, we need to have the hype on the video for this one because I really have no idea how the rest of this season's going to go, but it sure will be very, very, very exciting, let me tell you. Right, let's get into this, starting at the start. So, of course, reigning world champion Max Verstappen is on pole position. Lando Norris is both second in the championship and second on the grid for this race. World Championship leader Oscar Piastri had a disappointing qualifying. He started from 6th. The only change to our grid was Lance Stroll. The 5-place grid penalty for the collision with Ocon in the sprint pushes him down. I thought it would push him down to 20th, but it only pushes him down to 19th, I guess because of Hajar not setting an actual lap time. As for the tyres, and this was possibly the most important decision Ferrari have made all year. On the soft tyres is Charles Leclerc, also is Gabriel Bortoleto and Lance Stroll. Now, when I saw that initially, I thought, my goodness, Ferrari have done it again. They've messed it up before the race has even begun. But like I just said, I should stop doing predictions because this is the best choice they've made. Putting Charles Leclerc on the soft tyres absolutely made their race. A brilliant decision from them. What wasn't a brilliant decision was to use the hard tyres. That was used by Ocon, Albon and Hajar. We found out very, very quickly the hard tyre was pretty much useless, and for all the other drivers, it was all about extending their stints as long as they could, as long as they possibly could, just to avoid that hard tyre. Everyone else starts on the mediums. As the race gets underway, it's a good getaway from Max Verstappen, but a better getaway from Charles Leclerc on the, I believe, used soft tyres, is able to jump Lando Norris and take P2. It was a bad start for George Russell, who fell down the order and was battling Oscar Piastri for P5. But Max Verstappen, a tremendous start, a tremendous opening lap, is leading by nearly 1.5 seconds after just one lap. Meanwhile, Albon was off the track. We see later on in the replay he had a little contact between him and Bortoleto. Albon spinning off and going to the back of the grid, having to fight back from there. Now, Yuki Tsunoda was the big gainer on lap 1 yesterday in the sprint race. I think he went from, 18th to 7th, I think it was. He was also the big gainer today on lap 1. Not as big, of course, only gaining 3 places this time, up to P10, but Yuki Tsunoda making moves on the first lap. Carlos Sainz, oh my goodness, had a fantastic weekend until it all went wrong. At this point, it was still going fantastically. A great move from him on Ollie Behrman brings him up to P8, and Behrman loses another place to Tsunoda. Tsunoda passes him into turn 1 for P9. On lap 3, Lando Norris is on the back of Charles Leclerc, and this would be the story of the race for both of these men. Norris versus Leclerc, fighting for second place. It starts on lap 3. Now, we go to the replay of the race start now, and we get a little box in the top left-hand corner to show us what is happening live on track, and it cuts to Kimi Antonelli off the track. Now, if I'm in charge of race direction at this point, I stop showing the race start replays and show us what's actually happening on track. They chose not to, and to show us something very important in a little box. We see Antonelli off the track in the gravel. He is able to keep on going. Then we see Carlos Sainz pulled up to the side of the road. He's out of the race. As I was saying, It's been going fantastically for Carlos Sainz all weekend, but that ends on lap 7. He is out of the race. We see going into the little twisty section at the start of Sector 3, Carlos Sainz went for a dive on the inside of Kimi Antonelli, a near identical move to what he did to Ollie Behrman a couple laps previous, although on this one, it wasn't really on, and then it was followed up by a lockup. Then Antonelli, who was just following his line, closes the door because that's what the line did, and there's contact between the two of them. Sainz is out, Antonelli at the back of the grid. It's going to be investigated after the race. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it is a grid drop for Carlos Sainz going into the Mexican Grand Prix. Virtual safety car, as I said, Albon uses this as an opportunity to pit, take those hard tyres off and change them to the mediums. It was kind of a lose-lose for Albon at this point because the hard tyres were useless, but pitting this early cemented him in a two-stop, which was also useless. So, on lap 7, both Williams cars, who have looked strong all weekend, both of their races were pretty much over, unfortunately. Only Albon pits during that virtual safety car period. The virtual safety car ends, and interestingly, and it wasn't investigated, so I imagine it was Norris's fault rather than Leclerc, but going into that virtual safety car period, Norris and Leclerc are neck and neck. Norris has DRS on the back of the Ferrari. Coming out of it, Norris was nearly 2 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. Now, the commentators were saying that maybe, has Charles Leclerc been pushing a bit too hard? But if he had been, he would have been investigated. There was no investigation, which makes me think maybe Norris made a mistake somewhere, or maybe wasn't pushing as hard as Leclerc was, even though Leclerc was still within the guidelines. But yeah, Norris really losing out during that virtual safety car period. Meanwhile, Lance Stroll does an overtake into turn 1 and doesn't crash into anyone, passing Franco Colapinto for P14. Norris now on lap 13, back within DRS of Charles Leclerc, and we get a snitch watch. We haven't had snitch watch in a very long time. For those of you who are new around here, snitch watch is just when one driver is being a big old snitch and is snitching on another driver. This time, Charles Leclerc snitching on Norris for exceeding track limits, and that would come up quite a bit here because Norris gets a warning for track limits, which means he has exceeded track limits 3 times. If he had exceeded them another time, he would have got a penalty. Meanwhile, Bortoletto pits on lap 14 off the soft tyres, only getting them to work for 14 laps. Norris on the back of Charles Leclerc going for P2, but can't get past. Real great driving from both of them all day today in these battles, giving each other just the right amount of room. Really great stuff to see. That was on lap 15. 5 laps later on lap 20, they go wheel to wheel again. Leclerc does force Norris off the track ever so slightly at this point, which leads to his third and final track limits before he got the warning. So if he'd gotten one more, he would have got a 5-second penalty. Now, he gets that warning on lap 21 of 56, so we weren't even halfway through the race, and Norris is already on his final warning, and you can tell by the way he's driving for the remaining half of the race that he was really conscious of that, and there's so many times I think we see him have a huge lockup at one point, but he still manages to keep it between the lines. Really great stuff from Norris throughout the entire race today. On lap 21, Norris finally gets past Charles Leclerc for P2. As I said, it's been great stuff from both of them. Great defending from Leclerc, great attacking from Lando Norris, finally getting past on lap 21. At this point, Max Verstappen is nearly 11 seconds down the road. So as for race win, unless something mad happened to Max Verstappen, it wasn't really on. But still, a great result here for Norris. And if you're looking at the bigger picture, looking at the World Championship, even though Norris didn't win, his teammate was considerably lower than he was, got a huge points gain. So overall, good stuff from Lando Norris. But yeah, Norris gets past Leclerc, and then Lewis Hamilton, who's kind of just been in the background watching this all happen from 4th place at this point, he decides, you know what, I'll have a go at Charles Leclerc as well. And he did this yesterday in the sprint, and it got very aggressive and very feisty between the two Ferrari drivers. He tries it again. It gets even more aggressive this time. Leclerc, very strong defence against Hamilton, still keeping it within the rules, keeping it fair, but keeping it very aggressive, just to then pit. You know, his soft tyres were done. Now he spit on the camera. My goodness, that was rather impressive in a way. There you go. I'll clean that up for you. Wow. You don't get that on, I was going to say WTF1 then, but I don't think you get anything on WTF1 anymore. I think they've died. 1 second. There we go. Are we back in focus, everyone? Welcome back. Leclerc and Hamilton fighting at it then. And then Leclerc just pits anyway at the end of that lap because his tyres are done. So, realistically, I think there was a bit of a mistake there. Maybe Ferrari should have gone, right, Leclerc, you're pitting this lap. Let Hamilton go through. He can try and fight Norris and keep Norris back. And maybe this will help you in the long run. But yeah, that's what happened. Leclerc does pit, though, on lap 23, and it was a fantastic stint on the soft tyres. It has to be said. Real great stuff from him. 23 laps on what I believe were used soft tyres, moving over to the mediums. Great stuff from Charles Leclerc. Meanwhile, great little battle between Albon and Colapinto, with Albon passing him for P15. Then we get a lot of pit stops. So Piastri pits from 4th on lap 31. Hamilton pits from 3rd on lap 32. Norris pits from 2nd on lap 33. And again, not a great stop for the McLaren team. By no means McLaren's worst stop this year, because there have been a few which are considerably worse. But since we come back from the summer break, McLaren have not had a single race where 100% of their pit stops have gone well. 3.8 seconds this time for Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc is now back ahead of Norris after these pit stops. Meanwhile, Verstappen pits from the lead on lap 34. Russell also pits at this point. He was P2 on track, but that was just because of everyone else's pit stops. Behrman is fighting against Yuki Tsunoda for P7 at this point, going into that sector 3 twisty section that we spoke about before, where Carlos Sainz and Kimi Antonelli had their little issue. There's a little issue between these two here. Behrman goes for a little dive on the inside of Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki moves across in the braking. Behrman, desperately trying to avoid it, goes off the track, has a spin, comes back on, doesn't immediately lose a position, but then does get overtaken by Nico Hülkenberg. I don't think this was even investigated, which was quite surprising. So Yuki potentially getting away with something there, but there we go. Either way, a bit disappointing for Behrman, who was having a fantastic race up until this point, although he did manage to salvage it in the end. Lap 38, and Norris is on the back of Leclerc again with DRS. We're getting loads of track limit warnings now. It's not just Norris anymore. Bortoleto, Albon, Antonelli, all of them getting the track limit warnings at this point. And this is when Norris comes on the radio because his tyres are just done. He cannot challenge Charles Leclerc anymore, and he has to just fall back. Leclerc pulling away. The gap was around about 2.3 seconds, but Norris backed off, cooled his tyres, and then decided to go again. And he was back within DRS on lap 49. A huge dive bomb from Lando Norris into turn 1 at one point. Leclerc hits the switchback and able to keep the position. But half a lap later on that long back straight, Norris is able to take P2. A wonderful move from him. And he has such intelligent racing from himself and the McLaren team. They saw it was not going their way. They backed off. They cooled down the tyres. Then they go again. They fight for it. They get the move done. Fantastic stuff. Honestly, I think this is one of Lando Norris's best races this season. I know he's had races this year where he's obviously finished higher than P2, but in terms of just great, consistent, smart racing, this is up there for me for Lando Norris. Really, really, really good stuff. As we go to the closing stages of this race, an interesting thing here, Colapinto is behind Pierre Gasly for P17. Gasly going incredibly slowly at this point. Colapinto is fighting him, and the team tell him to stop fighting, despite the fact that Bortoleto is now behind Colapinto and fighting him. Colapinto chooses to ignore this instruction and takes P17 into turn 1. But as we cross the line, Max Verstappen wins the United States Grand Prix. We haven't actually spoken about him in a while in this video, but he did win the race. 40 points now is the gap between him and Oscar Piastri in the championship. He's gained 23 points on Oscar Piastri this weekend alone. Up next weekend is the Mexican Grand Prix, the track which Max Verstappen has won at 5 times, which is his joint number one, the Mexican track and the Red Bull Ring. He's won at both of them 5 times. That's the most he's ever won at any track. So he's going somewhere which he really enjoys, and he's in incredible form right now as well. Max Verstappen missing out on the fastest lap, but this weekend, sprint pole, feature race pole, sprint win, feature race win, led every lap in the sprint, led every lap in the main race. Just missing out on the fastest lap to get what could have been his 7th ever Grand Slam, and that would have been 2 Grand Slams in the space of a month? This shows the incredible form that Max Verstappen is on right now, winning this race. Great stuff from him to take P1. But it was also a great race from Lando Norris. Obviously missing out on the win here, but the way he fought against Leclerc throughout the entirety of the race I thought was really good from him. And now he is only 14 points off of the back of Oscar Piastri. And we've been speaking a lot about this championship battle in the last couple of weeks. And in my head, I've always had it that if Max Verstappen was to win the World Championship this year, Lando Norris would be in P3. But after the last few race weekends, if Max Verstappen was to win this, it could be Lando Norris in P2, or it could even be Lando Norris winning the World Championship. At this point, with the momentum that we've had over the last 3 or 4 races, maybe Oscar Piastri is the least likely to now win this World Championship, despite that points gap. If we continue with the momentum that we have, it looks like Oscar's best bet would be a P2 or a P3. He's built up that tremendous lead, but it is very quickly falling apart from him now after what was a great drive from Lando Norris. In P3 was Charles Leclerc. Again, a fantastic drive for him. Another podium for him as well. So really, really good stuff there. Lewis Hamilton has his joint best finish in a feature race of the season with a P4. It is only 5th for Oscar Piastri, the man who's been very much in control of this championship for most of the year, now finds himself on the back foot. His 3rd race in a row without a podium. He's losing control of the narrative of the championship this year. But, one good race, he can be back in this. But yeah, if I'm Piastri, I'm getting a little bit concerned because, if Baku hadn't happened, you'd be calling this a disaster weekend. And in a way, it is a disaster weekend. In Baku, you dropped 25 points to Max Verstappen. In Austin, you dropped 23. You've nearly lost 50 points to Max Verstappen in the space of just 2 race weekends. And then that's not including the fact that you lost points to him in Singapore, you lost points to him in Italy. It's all going a little bit wrong for Oscar Piastri as we enter the closing stages of this championship. And we've still got, 5 races, 2 sprint races to go? It's hot enough. Anything could happen. George Russell finished in 6th. The Mercedes is not really having the pace. We saw it in the sprint yesterday. There was a moment at the start where he was on the same pace as Max Verstappen. And of course, he won the race last time out in Singapore. But here, just did not have it. The first time out of the top 5 for him since Silverstone. There was one point in this race where he's saying, Oscar Piastri's going slow, isn't he? But then he couldn't catch him either, so I guess he was going even slower. Not the best day of the office for George Russell, but still some solid points. Yuki Tsunoda finishes in 7th, his 3rd points finish in just 6 races. Nico Hülkenberg back in the points for the first time since he got the podium at Silverstone. He finishes in 8th. Ollie Behrman, of course, had that little incident with Yuki Tsunoda, but he manages to secure back-to-back points with his 9th finish, and it's back-to-back points for Fernando Alonso in P10. Liam Lawson just misses out in 11th. 12th place for Stroll is his best result since Zandvoort. Kimi Antonelli in 13th had a fantastic and underrated drive. He was caught up in that incident with Sainz at the start, which I do not think was his fault, and he just had to fight constantly through this race. I don't know how many overtakes he did, but it seemed like every time he was shown, he was doing an overtake. Just overtake after overtake after overtake for Antonelli. Ultimately, means nothing because he finishes 13th and he gets no points. But I thought that was a great race from Antonelli nonetheless. Albon has back-to-back 14th place finishes. Esteban Ocon is on his 4th non-points race in a row now. He finishes in 15th. A disaster weekend for Isaac Hadjar, crashing in qualifying, starting on hard tyres, didn't work out for him. He finishes in 16th, his worst result since the Belgian Grand Prix. Colapinto ignores team orders to finish in 17th. Gabriel Bortoleto has his 2nd worst result of the year. Then it's back-to-back 19th place finishes for Pierre Gasly. And then our one DNF on the day is Carlos Sainz, his first DNF since the Bahrain Grand Prix. So there you go. That is the United States Grand Prix for 2025. And I said a couple of weeks ago that this was one of the worst World Championship battles I've ever seen in my entire life. And again, I will reiterate, I'm going to stop doing predictions because I keep on getting them wrong. or as Murray Walker used to say, my predictions instantly are proven to be incorrect. Because that's kind of just what's happening at the minute. I'm trying to pull something up here to show how the second half of the season has gone. But my computer does not... Aha! We have it! It's finally... I've been trying to get this to work since the start of me clicking record on this video. I finally got it to work. Here we go. This is something a little special for you. This is our Drivers' Championship since the Dutch Grand Prix. So since we've come back from the summer break, this is what our Drivers' World Championship looks like. And you can see, there he is, up top. Max Verstappen, 119 points since the summer break. Then it's George Russell in P2 on 80. Oscar Piastri third on 62. Lando Norris in 4th on 57. Leclerc, Hamilton, Anthony, Sainz and Albon. Tsunoda, Hadjar, Behrman, Alonso, Lawson, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Ocon. They're the 18 drivers who have scored points since the return of the summer break. But that is the big story at the top. The McLaren duo, who seemed so dominant, throughout the first half of this year, since we've come back, it's not gone their way. With Max Verstappen nearly scoring double the points of Oscar Piastri in this, what is it, 5-race spell? Is that about right? The Netherlands to the United States Grand Prix? If this continues, we're on for what should be a very, very, very close championship, and I hope we get it. So yeah, that is the Dutch Grand Prix there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 races and 1 sprint. Max Verstappen on 119, Oscar Piastri 62, Lando Norris 57. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 races to go and 2 sprint races. It is still all to play for in what has turned from the worst World Championship I've ever seen to possibly one of the more exciting ones in recent memory. Hopefully this should be good for the rest of the year. As always, I shall be here to discuss all of it with you. I shall be back tomorrow for all things driver ratings. Then next week we go to Mexico City. Not a sprint race, just a regular race. But as I said, one of Max Verstappen's very favourite tracks. And with the string of results he's on now, you'd be stupid to bet against him. We shall see what our championship picture looks like this time next week. I cannot wait. I shall see you then. Until next time, have a good one. Goodbye.